One series of videos that I've been wanting to do for a while now is a look back at wrestling games of the late 90s and early 2000s. That's when wrestling was arguably at its best, with WCW versus NWO and the Attitude Era in the WWF. But I always like to add a little bit something else to my videos, so rather than playing through for bragging rights, I wanted to play for the actual belts from that era. I already have my WWF Big Eagle here from around 1999-2000, although hopefully I can get this re-leathered at some point. But I had a problem when it came to the WCW title. Firstly, all WCW belts were out of production for a while when WCW was bought by WWF, and even now you can't buy all of the replicas. Although one that you can actually buy at this point is the Big Gold, the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, I'm not a big fan of the official replicas for reasons I'll go into in a minute, but thankfully there are alternatives, and one of those is this one, the Fandu Belts Big Gold, as I struggled to get this over my shoulder. Now I'm going to go through some of the differences between this one and the official replica, but first let me show you a few of the details on this belt. Now obviously this is more of a replica of the WCW and NWA version of the belt because there is no WWE logo at the top here. But it is a beautiful, beautiful belt, and you really notice the detail on this. It's not a flat etching at all. It is very thick etching, and it is, you know, it is a little bit overboard for those that want to be a little bit more screen accurate, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. At the moment I've got a blank nameplate on this, but you can get custom nameplates. This is the all gold Big Gold. They do different colours, as I'll go into more detail later in the video. This is one of the later ones. The earlier ones actually had sort of a non-textured backing on it. This one has more of an etched or dotted background on it, so it is it makes the features pop a little bit more, even though, you know, they're a lot more raised than they would be on the official replica. And the main thing to notice is the thickness of these plates. I mean, they're 8mm thick, which is twice that of the more higher end or the newer official replicas, and so it is a chunky, heavy belt, which isn't, you know, it isn't 100% screen accurate, but that doesn't really matter. Although this is meant to be the minor flawed version, I don't really see that many flaws on it. There are a little bit in sort of the moulding, and then there's a little bit sort of on the edge of one of the side plates, but generally speaking this is pretty perfect. This one has the original red and clear stones. You can have the option of different colours. Again, I'll show you some pictures of that as we go on in the video, but just going to take you through some of the more finer details of this belt. Now before we go into the differences between this belt and the official replica, let's just talk about price. The official belt will set you back around $400 or around £300 to £360 if buying from the European store, depending on which version you get. The Fandu Big Gold is $299, except, as I showed you earlier, this is an imperfect one, so that's actually $219. But they often have sales, and this one was for sale just last week for $179. Now that's not still cheap, but let me point out a few of the differences between the two and why this one is a bargain. I'll start with something that's a bit more of a personal preference thing. Originally, the official replicas came with 2mm thick plates, but this was recently updated to be 4mm thick, more in line with what the real belts would have had. The Fandu belts have massive 8mm thick plates. Some people won't like this, but it does add weight and prestige feel to the belts, and it's less accurate to the real belt, but in terms of a replica it does feel really good. And if you look at these photos from the company itself, you can see how much of a difference there is. Now technically the main plate is a bit smaller, but the official replica is flat as a pancake, like the original Big Gold, whereas the Fandu belt is curved so that it's closer to the WWE version, and personally I prefer this. Plus, if you look at the same series of photos, there's not actually that much of a difference. Now it's worth pointing out that all of these replicas, the official ones and this Fandu Big Gold, are all gold, when the original NWA and WCW version was actually two-tone, unlike the later casts and the WWE versions, which are all gold. But Fandu belts are customizable with different plate colours, different strap colours, and also different colour stones, one of which being a two-tone set of plates. I actually prefer some of the later WWE designs, minus the added WWE logo, rather than the original Crumrine design, but the Fandu belt does really stand out. And in terms of detail, the WCW and WWE replicas are fairly flat and don't show a lot of detailing very clearly. It's relatively sort of 2D etching compared to the incredible detail on the Fandu belt. Now, I don't have one of the official replicas here, but what I do have is one of the original mini replicas from around the year 2000, and you can get a better idea of the etching as it is the same on the larger versions as well as the mini replica. And compare it to that of the Fandu belt, it's actually a bit overboard on the Fandu belt, but even so, it does look fantastic. But one of the big selling points for me is the strap. Now, I mentioned you can get multiple different colours, but this actually comes on a simulated leather strap. But compare this to the hard rubber and cardboard stuffed straps that the official replicas come on, and it's night and day. If you handle it a bit roughly, you might start to see the leather starting to bubble and blister after a while. But what I have down here is an original kid-size US title replica, and you can see what happens to these straps after you've been handling them for a while. It completely starts to fall apart. So when you compare this to what the Fandu belts come on, it's no competition whatsoever. Not to mention that I could put this on a real leather strap with a custom nameplate and I'd still come in cheaper than an official replica Big Gold. It's also worth noting that WWE do cheaper versions of their replicas with plastic plates as opposed to metal, and they even do a version of the current WWE title as sold through Toys R Us, which, by the way, rest in peace. But I actually got this to try out once, although never actually got around to filming with it, because the plates got scratched even as I was taking it out of the packaging, and the strap was so solid, it didn't even fit on my shoulder properly. So considering that one was around £100, and this one is between £130 and £160 for the basic belt, there's just no competition whatsoever. This is a fantastic belt, and you'll be seeing much more of it in our upcoming series. I'll put a link in the description below to Fandu belts if you'd like to check them out for yourselves. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later.